In a rain-soaked alley, a chance encounter sparks a story that will steal your heart. Luna, a woman whose dreams linger beneath life's burdens, meets Henry, a stranger in worn clothes, with eyes that hide a breathtaking secret. Their fleeting moment of kindness blooms into a romance tested by betrayal, danger, and truths that threaten to break them. Can love triumph over the shadows of their past, or will deception tear them apart? Stay with us for a twist that will leave you stunned. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're tuning in from. We love hearing from our global listeners. If you adore tales of fated love, hit that subscribe button to catch every heartfelt chapter. Join us now as we unravel this unforgettable journey of passion and redemption, where destiny might just mend two broken souls. The rain fell in relentless sheets, turning the city's narrow alleys into rivers of gray. Luna dashed through the downpour, her worn sneakers slapping against the slick pavement. Her heart raced, not just from the sprint, but from the weight of the day. Tucked under one arm was a crumpled resume, its edges curling from the damp. In her other hand, a soggy paper bag held her lunch, a meager portion of rice and chicken she'd scrimped for. Today was her chance. A job interview at a tech firm, the kind of opportunity that could lift her from the grind of caring for her ailing grandmother and scraping by on odd jobs. Her dream of being an engineer, once bright, flickered like a candle in a storm. But she clung to it. She cut through an alley to save time, a shadowed shortcut lined with overflowing bins and cardboard stacks. The wet ground betrayed her. Her foot slipped, and in a heartbeat, the world tilted. The bag flew from her hand, rice scattering like confetti, and she hit the pavement hard, her palms stinging. "Perfect," she muttered, sitting in the muck, staring at her ruined lunch, as if it were her hopes spilled across the ground. "You all right?" The voice came from the shadows, low and steady, cutting through the rain's drumbeat. Luna's head snapped up. Behind a pile of sodden boxes, a man emerged. He was lean, his clothes tattered, a patched jacket, jeans frayed at the knees. But his presence was anything but broken. His hair, dark and matted from the wet, framed a face unshaven yet striking, and his eyes. They were a piercing hazel, sharp with a calm that didn't match his circumstances. He stepped closer, unbothered by the rain, and crouched beside her. "I'm fine," Luna said, though her voice wavered. She scrambled to gather the remnants of her meal, her cheeks burning under his gaze. He picked up the fallen container, its lid cracked, and handed it to her with a faint, lopsided smile. "There's still a bit left," he said, his tone warm, almost teasing. Luna hesitated, taking it from him. "Thanks," she mumbled, then glanced at the cardboard shelter behind him. "You live here?" "For now," he replied, his eyes scanning the alley as if it were a temporary stage. "It's just a stop between where I've been and where I'm going." His words carried a weight, a riddle wrapped in certainty, and Luna frowned. What kind of man spoke like that in a place like this? She noticed then, a gash on his foot, visible through a tear in his shoe, red and raw, trickling blood. "You're hurt," she said, instinct overriding caution. Without thinking, she dug into her backpack, pulling out a tissue, a small bottle of alcohol, and a strip of tape. "This'll sting," she warned, kneeling to clean the wound. He winced as the alcohol hit, his jaw tightening, but his eyes stayed on her, steady and searching. "I've had worse," he said, though his voice caught, betraying the bravado. Luna worked quickly, taping the tissue over the cut, her fingers brushing his skin. It was a fleeting touch, but it sent a jolt through her, like static in the air. Finished, she stood, brushing dirt from her knees, only for her stomach to growl loudly. She groaned, embarrassment flooding her. "Lost my lunch, late for an interview, And now I'm playing nurse in an alley, she muttered, half to herself. Could this day get worse? He chuckled, a soft, surprising sound. Could be worse. You could be stuck with just bread. He held up a small, crumpled bag, pulling out a hard roll. Want to split it? Luna stared, caught off guard. Only if there's butter, she quipped, surprising herself. His laugh deepened, and for a moment, the rain seemed to fade. They sat on the curb, sharing the bread in silence, the city's chaos a distant hum. Luna stole glances at him, his hands, calloused yet deliberate, his posture, upright despite the weight of his world. There was something about him, a quiet strength that didn't belong here. She checked her watch and sighed. The interview was long gone. Her chance slipped away like the rain down the gutter. Well, that's that, she said, standing. No job, no lunch, and I'm wasting time with a stranger who's got oddly captivating eyes. The words slipped out, and she blushed, turning away. Henry, he said, rising. And you are? Luna, she replied, meeting his gaze. He studied her, as if memorizing every line of her face, and she felt a pull, like a thread tightening between them. Good luck, Luna, he said, his voice soft but firm. You too, Henry. She walked away, her resume soggy but her heart strangely light. The alley faded behind her, but Henry's eyes lingered in her mind, a spark in the storm she couldn't shake. As she turned the corner, she didn't know that this fleeting encounter was no accident, that fate had just woven their paths together, and the man in the shadows held a secret that would change her life forever. The city hummed with restless energy as Luna trudged through its streets, the memory of Henry's hazel eyes trailing her like a shadow. Days had passed since their alley encounter, yet the stranger's quiet strength clung to her thoughts, a puzzle she couldn't solve. Her life, however, offered no time for daydreams. Between delivering packages and typing resumes for neighbors, Luna barely kept her head above water. Her grandmother's hospital bills loomed, and the missed interview stung like a fresh wound. Still, she found herself taking the alley shortcut daily, her pace slowing as she neared the spot where rice had scattered, and a stranger had shared his bread. Henry was always there, perched on a crate or leaning against the brick wall, his tattered jacket a stark contrast to his composed gaze. Their exchanges began as fleeting nods, then stretched into conversations that felt like stolen moments. You're persistent, he remarked one afternoon, his voice low, teasing, as she paused to catch her breath. Or maybe you're just hard to avoid, she shot back, a smile tugging at her lips. He chuckled, and the sound warmed her more than the weak November sun. They talked of small things, the city's noise, the bitterness of cheap coffee. But Henry's words carried an undercurrent, cryptic, yet deliberate. Some paths choose you, he said once, his eyes distant, and you only see it when you're already walking. Luna frowned, sensing a story behind his riddles, but he'd shift the topic, asking about her day with a disarming curiosity. His questions weren't prying, they were anchors, grounding her in a life that felt like quicksand. One freezing evening, the alley was cloaked in a bitter chill, the kind that sank into bones. Luna, her coat too thin, spotted Henry huddled beneath his cardboard shelter, his breath visible in the air. His face was pale, his hands trembling as he clutched his jacket. The bandage she'd taped on his foot was still there, now frayed and filthy, the wound beneath it angry and red. You're not okay, she said, crouching beside him, her voice firm despite the knot in her chest. It's nothing, he murmured, but his shiver betrayed him. Luna's heart twisted. She knew the risks. Inviting a stranger into her home was reckless, foolish even. But the thought of leaving him here, fading into the cold, was unbearable. I have a place, she said, almost a whisper. It's small, just a spare room, but it's warm. One night, Henry, just to get you through this." He looked at her, his eyes searching hers, a mix of surprise and something deeper, gratitude perhaps, or caution. "You don't have to do this, Luna," he said, his voice rough but sincere. "I know," she replied, standing, "but I'm doing it anyway." He hesitated, then nodded, taking her outstretched hand. His grip was firm, steady, and as they walked, Luna noticed his limp, yet he carried himself with a dignity that made the alley seem too small to hold him. Her apartment was a cramped haven of mismatched furniture and disinfectant's faint tang. "Welcome to my palace," she said, kicking aside a stray sock. "Ignore the chaos." Henry stepped inside, his gaze lingering on a framed photo of Luna with her grandmother, her smile radiant. "She's important to you," he said, not a question. "Everything," Luna answered, her throat tight. She led him to the spare room, a narrow space with a creaky bed, a thin blanket, and a heater that rattled but worked. "Bathrooms down the hall. Don't touch my stuff and don't get too comfortable. One night." "One night," he echoed, his eyes meeting hers with a quiet respect that made her pulse quicken. That night, Luna lay awake, the heater's hum mingling with her thoughts. Who was this man who spoke in riddles and looked at her like she was more than her struggles? Sleep eluded her, but so did fear. Henry's presence, though unknown, felt like a spark in her shadowed world. Morning brought a surprise. The scent of burnt toast wafted from the kitchen. Luna found Henry at the stove, wrestling with a pan, his expression a mix of determination and defeat. "You cooked?" she asked, incredulous. "Tried," he said, scraping charred crumbs onto a plate. "It's more abstract than edible," she laughed, the sound startling her, and tasted the toast. "Need salt," she teased, and his sheepish grin lit up the room. As days passed, Henry's presence wove into her routine. He fixed a flickering lamp with a bent spoon, organized her cluttered bookshelf, and left another note in a book. "You're brighter than you know." But his actions raised questions. When she caught him on her laptop, tweaking her resume's format, her temper flared. "You don't get to touch my things," she snapped, slamming the screen shut. "I was helping," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Your skills deserve better than that layout." His confidence, his ease with technology, didn't fit the man from the alley. Luna's suspicion grew, a seed taking root. Henry wasn't just a drifter. His words, his skills, the way he watched the world with a strategist's eye, hinted at a life left behind. As she left for another delivery job, his latest note burned in her mind. Who was Henry really? And why did her heart, against all reason, trust him, even as her head screamed for answers? The city's pulse thrummed through Luna's veins as she navigated its crowded streets, her mind a storm of questions. Henry's presence in her life, his cryptic notes, his deft hands fixing her world, his ease with her laptop, had cracked open a door she couldn't close. Who was this man who shared her toast and spoke of paths unchosen with the weight of a poet? Her days, filled with deliveries and the ache of hospital bills, left little room for answers. But the seed of suspicion planted in her apartment now sprouted, its roots curling around her heart. She took the alley again, not for speed but for him. Henry wasn't there. The cardboard shelter sagged under last night's rain, empty, and a pang of worry tightened her chest. Had he left? The thought stung more than it should. Shaking it off, she hurried to a delivery job, her bike weaving through traffic. At a newsstand near the drop-off, a faded headline caught her eye, half buried under newer papers. "Billionaire CEO vanishes." After crash blared the text, and below it, a photo. A man in a sharp suit, arms crossed, his hazel eyes unmistakable. Henry. Luna's breath caught, her fingers trembling as she bought the paper. The article was months old, detailing Henry Valtor, founder of Valtor Technologies, presumed dead after a helicopter crash. No body, no answers, only whispers of corporate turmoil. The face staring back at her was cleaner, polished, but those eyes, piercing, soulful, were the same ones that had watched her in the alley. Her mind reeled. The man who'd burned her toast, who'd taped her lamp with a spoon, was a missing billionaire? She pedaled home, the newspaper stuffed in her bag like a live wire. Her apartment was quiet, the spare room's door ajar. Henry sat on the bed, reading one of her books, his posture relaxed, but his gaze sharp as she stormed in. "Who are you?" she demanded, thrusting the paper at him. The headline glared between them, and for a moment, silence hung heavy, charged with the weight of truth. Henry set the book down, his expression shifting, not to fear, but to resignation, as if he'd known this moment was coming. "You weren't supposed to find out like this," he said, his voice low, steady. "I'm Henry Valtor. Or I was." Luna's heart pounded. "Was? You're a CEO, Henry, a billionaire. And you're hiding in my apartment, pretending to be… what? A drifter." Her voice cracked, anger and betrayal tangling inside her. "You lied to me." "I didn't lie," he said, standing, his eyes locking with hers. "I omitted. There's a difference." He took a step closer, but she held up a hand, stopping him. "Then tell me the truth now," she said, her voice steel. "All of it." He exhaled, running a hand through his hair, and for the first time, she saw a crack in his calm, a flicker of pain. "8 months ago, I walked away from everything," he began. "Valtor Technologies was my life, built from nothing. But Victor, my friend, my partner, turned on me. He orchestrated the crash, staged it to look like an accident. I survived, but I saw the truth. He was dismantling the company, siphoning assets through shell companies. If I went back, he'd finish me off. So I disappeared." Luna's anger wavered, pierced by the rawness in his voice. A memory flashed through her mind. Not hers, but his, as if his words painted it. Henry standing before a mirror in a sleek office, his suit pristine, his reflection a stranger. "Why hide here?" she asked, softer now. "Why my alley?" Henry's gaze softened, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "I didn't choose the alley. I chose to stay because of you." Her breath hitched. "You didn't look at me like I was broken. You saw me. Not the CEO, not the failure, just me." The room felt smaller, the air thick with unspoken things. Luna clutched the newspaper, its edges crumpling. "You should have told me," she said, her voice trembling. "I let you into my home, Henry. I trusted you." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "And I've never been more grateful, or more ashamed." He stepped closer, and this time she didn't stop him. "I wanted to tell you, Luna. Every time you laughed at my cooking, every time you left the room, I almost did. But I was afraid you'd see me differently." She looked into his eyes, those same eyes that had steadied her in the rain, and saw truth, raw, unguarded. Her anger ebbed, replaced by an ache she couldn't name. "What now?" she asked. "You can't hide forever." "I don't want to," he said, his voice firm. "Victor's still out there, tearing apart what I built. I need to stop him, but I can't do it alone." His gaze held hers, a plea and a promise. "Will you help me?" Luna's heart raced. This was madness, helping a fugitive CEO, diving into a world of corporate betrayal. But the alternative, walking away, letting Henry fade back into the shadows, was unthinkable. She thought of her grandmother's words, "Kindness is a choice, but trust is a leap." She'd taken the first leap in the alley. Now, she'd take another. "I'm in," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "But no more secrets, Henry, promise me." "I promise," he said, and the weight of his words felt like a vow. As they stood there, the newspaper forgotten on the bed, Luna felt a shift, a thread tightening between them, binding their fates. Outside, the city roared, but in that small room, a new battle began, one that would test their hearts and rewrite their stars. The city's neon glow pulsed against the night, but Luna felt only the weight of her choice. Henry's revelation, his life as Henry Valtor, the betrayed CEO, had turned her world into a labyrinth of secrets and stakes. His promise of no more lies lingered in her mind, a fragile thread binding them as they stepped into a battle far bigger than her small apartment. Yet, as she pedaled through dawn's gray haze to her new temp job at Nixara, a tech firm tied to Victor's schemes, doubt gnawed at her. Helping Henry meant risking everything: her safety, her dreams, the quiet life she'd fought for. But walking away meant losing the man whose eyes had seen her when she felt invisible. Nixara's sleek offices buzzed with efficiency, all glass walls and humming servers. Luna, hired as an IT assistant, blended in, her badge a key to restricted systems. Her task was clear: find evidence of Victor's shell companies. Each night, she lingered after hours, her heart pounding as she sifted through encrypted files. A hidden folder labeled offshore transfers revealed coded transactions, millions funneled through dummy accounts. She copied them to a flash drive, her fingers trembling, knowing one wrong move could expose her. The risk electrified her, but so did the purpose. For the first time since abandoning her engineering dreams, she felt alive, a player in a game that mattered. Henry, meanwhile, moved in shadows. He'd promised transparency, but his plan required discretion. Victor's next move was a gala at the Meridian Hotel, a glittering event for tech moguls, where deals were whispered over champagne. Henry needed to be there to hear Victor's plans firsthand. He donned a tailored suit, his hair trimmed, and slipped on a forged badge: Evan Holt, consultant. The name was a ghost from his past, a shield he'd used in shadier deals. As he adjusted his tie in a cracked motel mirror, guilt pricked him. He hadn't told Luna about Evan Holt, not to deceive her, but to protect her from the murkier parts of his world. Yet the omission felt like a betrayal of their vow. The gala was a sea of wealth, chandeliers casting light like scattered diamonds. Henry blended in, his charm disarming executives as he eavesdropped. Victor stood at the center, his smile sharp, boasting of a merger that would reshape Valtor. Henry's blood ran cold. The merger was a facade, a final step to gut the company. He needed more: a recording, a document. But Victor's guards loomed, and time was short. Across the room, a figure caught his eye: Luna, in a plain server's uniform, balancing a tray of flutes. His heart lurched. She wasn't supposed to be here. Luna had taken the catering gig for extra cash, unaware it was Victor's event until she arrived. Seeing Henry, or Evan Holt, as his badge read, stunned her. He moved with a CEO's ease, laughing with tycoons, his eyes scanning the room like a predator's. The man who'd burned her toast was gone, replaced by someone who belonged in this world of power. Her chest tightened. Betrayal, not danger, was the blade. Had he lied again? She ducked into a hallway, her tray clattering, and sent him a text. "Why are you here? Who's Evan Holt?" Henry's phone buzzed, but before he could respond, a new message hit Luna's inbox, anonymous and chilling. "Do you really know him?" Attached was a scanned document, a stock transfer under Evan Holt, dated after Henry's supposed disappearance. The signature was his, unmistakable. Luna's breath hitched. The message wasn't from Henry, but it bore his mark. Was he playing her, using her trust to reclaim his empire? She fled the gala, the flash drive heavy in her pocket, her heart heavier still. Back at the apartment, Luna sat in the dark, the document open on her phone. Henry slipped in past midnight, his suit rumpled, his face etched with worry. "Luna, I saw your text, he said, voice urgent. I can explain. Explain this, she snapped, shoving her phone at him. The document glowed accusingly. Evan Holt, you promised no secrets, Henry. Were you lying then, or are you lying now? He froze, his eyes tracing the file. This isn't mine, he said, his voice low, fierce. Someone's setting me up. Evan Holt was an alias, yes, from years ago. Legal, closed. I used it tonight to get close to Victor, but I didn't tell you because... He faltered, his gaze raw. I didn't want you to see this side of me, the side that plays dirty to survive. Luna's anger wavered, but doubt held firm. You should have trusted me, she said, her voice breaking. I'm risking my life for you, and you're still hiding. She turned away, clutching the flash drive. I found evidence tonight. Transfers, accounts, Victor's plan. But I don't know if I can give it to someone I don't fully trust. Henry stepped closer, his hand hovering near hers. I'm not that man anymore, he said, almost a plea. But I need you, Luna. Not for the company, for me. She met his eyes, those hazel depths that had steadied her in the rain, and saw truth battling shame. Her heart urged her to believe, but her head screamed caution. As she retreated to her room, a book on her shelf caught her eye, one Henry had organized. Tucked inside was a note in his scrawl. You gave me a home when I was lost. The words pierced her, a lifeline in the storm. Trust was fractured, but not broken. Tomorrow, she'd decide. Stand with Henry or walk away. For now, the flash drive burned in her palm, a choice that could save them or shatter everything. The dawn broke gray and heavy, mirroring the storm in Luna's heart. The flash drive, heavy with Nexara's secrets, sat on her nightstand, a silent challenge. Henry's note, you gave me a home when I was lost, had kept her from walking away. But the forged document under Evan Holt gnawed at her trust. Was Henry the man who'd shared her bread, or the shadow who moved through galas with a stranger's name? As she brewed coffee, the apartment felt smaller, its walls pressing in with unspoken truths. Henry emerged from the spare room, his face etched with sleepless worry. Luna, he began, but she cut him off, sliding her phone across the table. This came last night, she said, voice taut. The anonymous message glared. Check his phone. Holt lives. Henry's eyes darkened as he read it, then pulled out his own device, scrolling through messages. This number, he muttered. It's Marcus, my contact at Valtor. He's been feeding me intel. Or so I thought. Luna's breath caught. Marcus, Henry's trusted ally, had sent the forged document, orchestrating their rift. Why? She demanded, anger flaring. Henry's jaw tightened. Victor got to him. Money, power. Marcus always had a price. The betrayal stung, but it also clarified. Henry hadn't lied about Evan Holt's closure. Marcus had weaponized his past. Luna's doubt eased, replaced by resolve. We end this, she said, gripping the flash drive. Victor's merger is tomorrow. We expose him there. Their plan took shape in the dim glow of a single lamp, papers strewn across the table. Luna's evidence, recordings of Victor's calls, offshore transfers, would be broadcast at the merger meeting, a public unmasking. Henry would confront him as himself, reclaiming Valtor. The risk was immense. Victor's guards, corporate allies, and the mysterious threat from the gala's photo loomed. Yet, as they strategized, their hands brushing over documents, a current passed between them. You don't have to do this, Henry said, his voice low, raw. This isn't your fight. Luna met his gaze, her hazel eyes fierce. It became mine the moment I brought you home. His breath hitched, and in that candlelit pause he reached for her hand. You're my reason, Luna, he said, voice breaking. Not just for Valtor, for everything. Her heart raced, but she squeezed his hand, anchoring them both. Then let's make it count. The Meridian Hotel's conference hall gleamed with corporate opulence. Marble floors, towering screens, and suits that cost more than Luna's rent. She slipped in as tech support, her badge forged, a tiny recorder hidden in her jacket. Her pulse thrummed as she connected cables, her eyes scanning the room. Executives filled the seats, their murmurs a low hum of anticipation. Victor hadn't arrived, but his presence loomed, a predator circling unseen. Henry entered through a side door, his suit crisp, his badge reactivated through an old Walter loophole. He was no longer Evan Holt, but Henry Walter, his posture commanding despite the weight of 8 months' exile. Luna caught his eye across the room, a silent nod sealing their pact. She uploaded the recordings to the projector system, her fingers steady despite the sweat on her brow. One click, and Victor's empire would crumble. The doors swung open, and Victor strode in, his smile a blade. "Gentlemen," he began, his voice smooth, "today marks Walter's future, a merger to redefine our legacy." The crowd leaned in, enthralled. Luna's hand hovered over the keyboard, waiting for Henry's signal. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the hall. "A legacy built on lies," he said, and gasps rippled through the room. "I'm Henry Walter, and this ends now!" Victor froze, his composure cracking. "You're dead!" he hissed, but Henry's gaze was steel. "Not yet." Luna pressed play. Victor's voice boomed from the speakers. "Walter's assets will vanish through the merger. No one will trace it." The screens flashed with documents, transfers, shell companies, all in Victor's name. The executives erupted, some bolting for the doors, others staring, stunned. Victor lunged for the projector, but security, tipped off by Henry's old allies, blocked him. "It's fake!" he roared, but his allies wavered, their trust fracturing. Luna stepped forward, her voice clear. "I worked at Nexara. I saw the accounts. Henry fought to save what you stole." Her words, raw and true, silenced the room. Victor's eyes burned into hers, a promise of vengeance, but Henry's presence beside her was a shield. Police stormed in, cuffs clicking around Victor's wrists. He glared at Henry as he was led away. The city's skyline glittered below Luna's balcony, a mosaic of light that felt colder than ever. The threatening photo, her face captured in grainy detail outside Nexara, lay on the table, its scrawled warning, "You're not safe," a splinter in her mind. Victor's arrest should have been a triumph, but the shadow of an unseen enemy tainted it. Henry stood beside her, his hand warm in hers, his confession of love still echoing. "I love you too," she'd whispered, but the words carried a weight she couldn't bear. The battle had bound them, but its cost left her unmoored, her heart torn between devotion and a need to reclaim herself. "I need time," Luna said, her voice barely above the city's hum. Henry's eyes, those hazel depths that had anchored her through chaos, searched hers. "Time," he repeated, pain flickering across his face. She nodded, her throat tight. "I've been fighting for you, for us, but I don't know who I am anymore. I need to find that, Henry, or I'll lose myself completely." He squeezed her hand, his silence a vow to honor her choice, though it carved a hollow in his chest. "I'll wait," he said, voice rough, "as long as it takes." Luna left a note before dawn. "I love you, but I must love me first." She slipped out, the apartment's quiet, a stark contrast to the storm within. The city swallowed her, and for the first time in months, she walked alone. Days blurred into weeks. Luna took a job at a small bookstore, its dusty shelves a refuge. She poured herself into it, transforming the space into pages of peace, a haven where locals lingered over coffee and stories. Each book she shelved, Each smile she earned rebuilt her. A woman who'd once dreamed of circuits and code, but now found strength in simpler things. Yet Henry's absence was a quiet ache. His notes, "You're brighter than you know," etched in her memory. Henry, too, sought solace in reinvention. He stepped away from Voltor Technologies, its glass towers a reminder of betrayal. The company was stable, guided by a new board, but it no longer defined him. He poured his wealth into community projects, libraries, cafes, scholarships, each a step toward a life unburdened by secrets. In a quiet town hours from the city, he opened Dentino Cafe, named for a childhood memory of a stranger's kindness. The wooden sign, hand-carved, swung gently in the breeze, and locals flocked to its warmth. Yet every cup he poured felt empty without Luna's laughter, her fierce gaze challenging his every move. Months passed, the seasons shifting from winter's bite to spring's soft bloom. Luna's bookstore thrived, its walls lined with her touch. Handwritten recommendations, fairy lights strung like stars. She smiled more, her dreams of engineering now a distant echo, replaced by a quieter ambition, to create a space where hearts could breathe. But Henry lingered in her thoughts, a melody she couldn't silence. One evening, as she closed pages of peace, an envelope slipped under the door. Inside was a letter, signed with a single H. "There's an empty chair in a town where coffee never cools. If you're ready, I'm here." Luna's heart raced, the words a bridge across their distance. She read it again, her fingers tracing his script, and knew she was ready. Not out of need, but choice. She packed a small bag, her engineering textbooks left behind, and took a bus to the town Henry's letter described. The road wound through fields of wildflowers, the air sweet with promise. Dentino Cafe stood at the town's heart, its windows glowing like a beacon. She pushed the door open, the bells chime a soft welcome. Henry was behind the counter, sleeves rolled up, his hair longer, but his eyes unchanged. Hazel, soulful, hers. He froze, a coffee pot in hand, as their gazes locked. The world fell away, leaving only the weight of their journey. "Luna," he breathed, stepping forward, his voice a mix of hope and fear. "You came." "Took me a while," she said, a smile breaking through. "But I'm here." He rounded the counter, stopping inches from her, his breath unsteady. "I thought I'd lost you," he admitted, raw and unguarded. She shook her head. "You never did. I just needed to find myself first." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a simple silver ring, its stone catching the light. "This isn't for forever. Not yet," he said, his voice steady now. "It's for today, tomorrow. Every day we choose to build together. Will you take it?" Luna's eyes shimmered, her heart full. "Only if the coffee's strong," she teased, and his laugh, warm and free, filled the space between them. She slid the ring on, its weight a promise, not a chain. They sat at a corner table, coffee steaming, as the cafe hummed with life. Luna told him of her bookstore, her newfound peace. Henry shared his projects, his quest for simplicity. Their hands brushed, a spark reigniting what time couldn't dim. Outside, the town slept, unaware of the love rekindled within its heart. But a shadow lingered, Luna's memory of the threatening photo, a hint that their story wasn't finished. For now, though, they had this moment, and it was enough. The morning sun spilled over the quiet town, painting Dentino Cafe in hues of gold. Luna stood behind the counter, her silver ring catching the light as she poured coffee, its aroma mingling with the scent of fresh bread. Henry's proposal, not for forever, but for every day they chose, had tethered their hearts, a vow born in the warmth of their reunion. Yet, as she served locals with a smile, the memory of the threatening photo from the Meridian lingered, a faint shadow on her joy. Someone had watched her, and though Victor was behind bars, the unease remained, a whisper she couldn't silence. Henry, moved through the cafe with easy grace, his sleeves rolled up, his laughter blending with the clink of cups. The past months had changed him. Gone was the CEO's guarded edge, replaced by a man who found purpose in small acts, brewing the perfect blend, teasing Luna about her foam art. Their days were a rhythm of shared glances and quiet touches, a dance of two souls rediscovering each other. But today, the cafe buzzed with an unusual energy, the staff exchanging sly smiles, their movements hurried, yet secretive. "What's going on?" Luna asked, eyeing Pedro, the barista, as he fumbled a mug. "Nothing," he said, his grin betraying him. Henry appeared from the kitchen, a bouquet of sunflowers in hand, their petals vibrant against his worn apron. "Henry," she said, narrowing her eyes, "is this your doing?" He only smiled, offering his hand. "Come with me. 5 minutes." She followed him outside, the spring air soft against her skin. The cafe's garden, once a patch of weeds, now bloomed with color, roses, lavender, and strings of fairy lights woven through the branches. A crowd waited. Neighbors, customers, friends from Pages of Peace, their faces alight with anticipation. Luna's breath caught. At the garden's heart, a wooden arch stood, draped in white cloth. A table beside it, holding a carrot cake, its chocolate frosting gleaming. Her favorite. Henry turned to her, his hazel eyes shimmering. "Luna," he said, his voice steady, but thick with emotion. "You found me when I was ruins and built me back with your heart. I don't want a single day without you." He knelt, not with a ring this time, but with all he was. "Marry me, right now." Her hand flew to her mouth, tears pricking her eyes. "Now?" she whispered, half laughing through the shock. He nodded. "Everything's ready, simple like us. All we need is you." She looked around, the lights, the faces, the garden they'd nurtured, and felt her heart answer before her lips could. "I do," she said, and the crowd erupted in cheers. The ceremony was a blur of joy. A local justice of the peace, her voice warm, guided them through vows. Luna spoke first, her gaze locked on Henry's. "I promise to remind you who you are, even when you forget," she said, her voice trembling with love. Henry's reply was fierce, unwavering. "I promise to protect you, even if the world crumbles." They sealed it with a kiss, unhurried, as if every trial in the alley, the lies, the threats, had led to this perfect moment. The cafe transformed into a dance floor, tables pushed aside, children twirling with napkins tied like capes. Pedro strummed a guitar, his melody soft against the chatter. Luna and Henry swayed together, her head on his shoulder, the ring stone cool against her finger. "Happy," he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "More than I thought possible," she said. But a flicker of unease remained, the photos warning a distant echo. As dusk settled, the guests departed, leaving the cafe quiet, lit by a single lamp. Luna sat at the counter, stirring a cup, her mind drifting. "Henry," she said, "we should change the name." He raised an eyebrow, joining her. "Dintino's not enough?" She shook her head, grabbing a napkin and a pen. In blue ink she wrote, "Cafe and Heart." "This is us," she said, her voice soft. "Not just a place of promise." Henry's smile was radiant. "Tomorrow we change the sign," he said, his hand covering hers. The napkin lay between them, a symbol of their new beginning. But as they locked up, Luna glanced at the street, her eyes catching a figure in the distance, too far to see, yet too still to ignore. Her pulse quickened, but Henry's arm around her steadied her. "We're together," he said, sensing her fear. "That's enough." The next week, Cafe and Heart became a local gem, its name drawing curious travelers. Luna managed the books, Henry perfected the brews, and their love flowed effortlessly, a quiet luxury. Yet, across the ocean, in a dimly lit office, a woman read a report. Target relocated. Minimal influence, but emotionally exposed. She typed 2 words, "Keep watching," and leaned back, a cigarette's glow lighting her smile. The game wasn't over, but Luna and Henry, bound by vows and a shared heart, were ready for whatever lay ahead. What a journey Luna and Henry have taken us on, from a rain-soaked alley to the heart of Cafe and Heart. Did their love story steal your breath or spark a memory of your own? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what moved you most. A huge thank you for joining us. Your support makes every tale come alive. Until next time, keep believing in destined love, and we'll meet again for another story that tugs at your heartstrings. Stay tuned.